Steve Harvey had hosted Family Feud for over 15 years, guiding thousands of families through moments of competition, celebration, and occasional unexpected revelations on his stage. Throughout his extensive career in television, he had witnessed the complete spectrum of human emotion and family dynamics, from heartwarming demonstrations of love and commitment to uncomfortable moments when hidden betrayals surfaced under the pressure of public performance. However, nothing in his considerable experience could have prepared him for what would unfold on that August afternoon in 2024, when a wife's discovery of her husband's infidelity would occur in real time during the taping, triggered by an innocuous game show question that would expose lies and betrayal in the most public way imaginable and leave Steve Harvey delivering one of the most emotionally raw and unscripted responses in the show's history. The Bennett family from Charlotte, North Carolina, stood ready to compete against the Martinez family from Phoenix, Arizona, both families having traveled to Los Angeles excited about their opportunity to participate in America's most beloved game show. Yet beneath the surface of rehearsed smiles and coordinated outfits, a devastating secret was about to be exposed in a manner so unexpected and public that it would leave everyone present struggling to process what had occurred and grappling with how to respond to genuine human tragedy unfolding in what was supposed to be a light-hearted entertainment setting. If you value authentic stories about families facing their most difficult moments and the importance of truth even when revelation causes profound pain, please take a moment to engage with this content by hitting the like button and subscribing to our channel for more powerful narratives about real families navigating real challenges with courage and honesty. Andrew and Christina Bennett had been married for 16 years, though the foundation of trust that should have characterized those years had been systematically undermined by Andrew's pattern of deception and infidelity that Christina had no knowledge of until the moment of public revelation on the Family Feud stage. Andrew was 44 years old, a regional sales manager for a pharmaceutical company whose frequent business travel had provided both the opportunity and the cover for extramarital affairs that he had managed to conceal from his wife through careful compartmentalization and deliberate dishonesty about his activities and whereabouts during trips away from home. Christina, 41, worked as a pediatric nurse practitioner, her career demanding long hours and emotional investment in the well-being of young patients, but also providing her with professional fulfillment and financial contribution to the family that she valued deeply. Their children completed the family lineup on the Family Feud stage. 14-year-old Megan stood near her parents with the typical self-consciousness of a teenager appearing on television, completely unaware that her understanding of her family and her parents' marriage was about to be shattered in the most public way possible. 11-year-old Connor displayed genuine excitement about being on his favorite game show, his enthusiasm pure and uncomplicated by any awareness of the crisis that was minutes away from exploding into their lives. Christina's sister Rachel, 38, rounded out the 5-person team, included in the Family Feud appearance as someone Christina was close to and trusted, someone who would bear witness to what was about to occur and provide support in the devastating aftermath. What made the Bennett family situation particularly tragic was not simply that Andrew had been unfaithful, though that betrayal alone would have been devastating enough, but rather the systematic nature of his deception and the complete absence of any awareness on Christina's part that her marriage was not what she believed it to be. Andrew had been conducting affairs with multiple women over the course of their 16-year marriage, relationships that ranged from brief encounters during business trips to more sustained connections that had lasted months before ending and being replaced by new affairs with different women. He had developed elaborate systems for maintaining these deceptions, including separate phones for communication with affair partners, careful management of credit card statements and receipts to hide evidence of his activities, and well-practiced lies about his whereabouts and activities during travel that Christina had no reason to question or doubt. Christina had believed throughout their marriage that she and Andrew shared a strong partnership characterized by mutual trust, open communication, and shared commitment to their family and their relationship. She had supported Andrew's career advancement and the increasing travel demands that came with his progression into regional management positions, viewing his professional success as beneficial for their family, and never imagining that the time away from home was being used for anything beyond the work obligations he described. She had maintained her own demanding career while managing the majority of parenting responsibilities and household obligations during Andrew's frequent absences, believing that her sacrifices and Andrew's hard work were investments in building a secure future for their family. The reality, which would be exposed in the most unexpected and public manner possible, was that Andrew had been living a double life for years, maintaining his marriage and family while simultaneously pursuing sexual and romantic relationships with other women, whenever opportunity presented itself through his business travel schedule. He had rationalized his behavior through various mental frameworks that allowed him to compartmentalize his affairs as separate from his marriage and family life, convincing himself that what Christina did not know could not hurt her, and that his extramarital activities had no impact on his role as husband and father as long as he continued to fulfill his financial obligations and maintained appropriate behavior when he was home with his family. The Family Feud appearance had been arranged through Andrew's company, part of an employee engagement initiative that provided opportunities for staff and their families to participate in various entertainment experiences. Andrew had viewed the taping as a fun family activity and an opportunity to appear on television, never imagining that the experience would result in the exposure of secrets he had carefully maintained for years. Christina had been excited about the opportunity to create a positive family memory and to share the experience with her sister Rachel, someone she was close to and valued having as part of this special occasion. The game began with standard Family Feud energy and production quality, Steve Harvey engaging both families with his characteristic warmth and humor. The Martinez family presented as genuinely warm and connected, their interactions demonstrating authentic affection and comfortable familiarity among family members. The Bennett family appeared similarly cohesive and positive in their interactions, with no visible indicators of the crisis that was about to unfold and forever alter their understanding of themselves as a family unit. The first round proceeded normally, with both families providing answers to survey questions with varying degrees of success. The atmosphere was lighthearted and fun, exactly what one would expect from a family game show experience. However, it was during the second round that the question appeared which would inadvertently trigger the exposure of Andrew's infidelity and create one of the most shocking and painful moments in Family Feud history. The survey question addressed a topic that seemed innocuous on its surface, but that would prove devastating in its application to the Bennett family's specific circumstances. The question asked contestants to name something a married man might have in his wallet that he would not want his wife to see. Expected responses included receipts from purchases he wanted to hide, photos of ex-girlfriends from before the marriage, business cards from establishments like bars or clubs, or perhaps evidence of surprise gift purchases that he wanted to keep secret until an appropriate occasion for presentation. The question was designed to generate amusing and relatable responses that acknowledged normal human tendencies toward privacy and surprise planning within marriages. Nothing more serious or problematic than the minor secrets that most couples maintained without causing actual harm to their relationships. However, what transpired went far beyond typical game show territory and into genuinely devastating revelation about betrayal and deception that had been maintained for years. Andrew Bennett buzzed in first, winning the opportunity to provide the initial answer for his family. Steve Harvey turned to him with an encouraging smile, ready for what would likely be a standard response about hidden receipts or forgotten business cards. The studio audience waited with pleasant anticipation, expecting to hear Andrew acknowledge some common male tendency in a self-deprecating way that would be both honest and amusing. Andrew's answer came quickly and without apparent recognition of what he was about to reveal, or how his response would expose the very thing he had been hiding from his wife for years. He stated with confidence that a married man might have condoms in his wallet that he would not want his wife to see. The answer was delivered casually, as if it were an obvious and universal truth, rather than a devastating confession about his own practices and behaviors. The studio audience's reaction was immediate and complex, a mixture of laughter from those who interpreted the answer as a joke or hypothetical response divorced from Andrew's personal experience, and gasps from those who recognized the implications of a married man casually acknowledging that husbands might carry condoms they did not want their wives to know about. Steve Harvey's expression shifted from casual game, show host engagement to visible confusion and concern about what Andrew had just said, and what it might mean about his marriage and his relationship with Christina. Before Steve could fully process Andrew's answer or decide how to respond, Christina's reaction provided unmistakable clarity about the significance of what had just been revealed. Her face went completely white, all color draining from her features as the implications of Andrew's answer crashed over her with devastating force. Her hand flew to her mouth as if trying to physically prevent the sounds of shock and pain from escaping, her eyes wide with horror and dawning comprehension of what her husband had just inadvertently confessed. Christina turned to Andrew with an expression of absolute devastation and spoke in a voice that carried throughout the silent studio despite being barely above a whisper. She asked him directly, and simply why a married man would have condoms in his wallet that he did not want his wife to see. What possible innocent explanation could exist for that scenario beyond the obvious and devastating conclusion that the man was using those condoms with someone other than his wife? The question hung in the air as everyone present recognized that they were no longer participating in a game show, but rather witnessing the real-time discovery of infidelity. A wife learning in the most public way imaginable that her husband had been unfaithful, and that his casual answer to a game show question had exposed secrets he had apparently successfully hidden throughout their marriage. Andrew's face reflected the dawning horror of recognition that his thoughtless response had revealed exactly what he had been concealing, that his attempt to provide what he thought was a clever game show answer had instead functioned as an inadvertent confession that was now being processed by his wife in front of hundreds of witnesses. Andrew attempted to backtrack and reframe his answer, suggesting desperately that he had simply been thinking of what men in general might have in their wallets rather than speaking from personal experience, that his answer was hypothetical rather than autobiographical. However, the panic in his voice and the obvious desperation of his attempted explanation only reinforced Christina's growing certainty that her worst fears were being confirmed, that Andrew's answer had indeed been drawn from his own experience, and that the condoms he had referenced were ones he personally carried for use in extramarital encounters. Steve Harvey stood frozen at the center of the stage, his face reflecting genuine shock and profound discomfort at what was unfolding before him. His usual ability to navigate awkward moments with humor or redirection had completely abandoned him in the face of witnessing a marriage imploding in real time, a wife discovering her husband's infidelity through his own careless words during what was supposed to be a fun family experience. The production crew exchanged uncertain glances, unsure whether to cut to commercial break or continue recording what was clearly genuine human tragedy rather than scripted entertainment. Christina's shock was rapidly giving way to anger and pain as the full implications of Andrew's answer continued to register. She demanded that Andrew tell her the truth immediately, that he stop lying and explain why he would have given that specific answer if it were not drawn from his own personal experience and behavior. She asked him directly whether he had been unfaithful to her, whether he had been carrying condoms for use with other women, whether their entire marriage had been built on lies and deception while she had trusted him completely and believed in the partnership they had claimed to share. The silence in the studio was absolute and suffocating as everyone waited for Andrew's response to his wife's direct questions. Andrew stood with his head down, unable to meet Christina's eyes or the eyes of anyone else present, his body language communicating defeat and guilt even before he spoke any words of acknowledgement or confession. When he finally responded, his voice was barely audible, but his words were clear enough to confirm Christina's worst fears and destroy any remaining possibility of innocent explanation or misunderstanding. Andrew admitted that he had been unfaithful to Christina, that his answer about condoms had indeed been drawn from his own experience, that he had been having affairs throughout their marriage, and that he was deeply sorry for the pain he had caused and for the terrible way in which Christina had learned about his betrayals. The confession was delivered with obvious shame and regret, but those emotions provided no comfort or mitigation for Christina, who was processing the devastating revelation that her 16-year marriage had been built on systematic deception, and that the man she had trusted completely had been betraying that trust repeatedly and consistently, while she had remained completely unaware. Christina's response to Andrew's confession was a sound of pure anguish, a cry that seemed to come from the depths of her soul as years of trust and love and shared history collapsed under the weight of revealed betrayal and deception. She turned away from Andrew physically, unable to bear looking at him or standing near him in that moment, her entire body shaking with the force of her grief and rage, and the shock of having her understanding of her life and her marriage shattered so completely and publicly. Rachel immediately moved to Christina's side, wrapping her arms around her sister and providing physical support as Christina's legs seemed to lose strength, and she appeared in danger of collapsing completely. Megan and Connor stood frozen in horror and confusion, their young faces reflecting the trauma of watching their mother's world disintegrate and learning, in the most public way possible, that their father had been lying and betraying their family throughout their entire lives. Steve Harvey found his voice after what seemed like an eternity of shocked silence, though when he spoke his words reflected the genuine emotional impact of what he had just witnessed, rather than any attempt to maintain his game, show host persona, or redirect the situation back toward entertainment content. Steve's voice, when he addressed the situation, carried profound sadness and barely controlled anger at what Andrew had done, and the devastating way in which his betrayal had been revealed to his wife and children. Steve spoke directly to Andrew with none of his usual warmth or humor, his tone reflecting moral judgment and personal offense at having his stage used as the setting for such devastating revelation, and at being made unwitting participant in the exposure of infidelity and the destruction of a family's sense of security and trust. Steve told Andrew that what had just occurred was one of the most painful and difficult situations he had ever witnessed in his 15 years of hosting Family Feud, that watching a wife discover her husband's infidelity in real time on national television was not entertainment, but genuine human tragedy that should never have occurred in this manner. Steve made clear that while Andrew's inadvertent confession through his game show answer was not intentional revelation, the betrayal itself represented profound moral failure and devastating breach of trust that had now caused immeasurable pain not only to Christina, but also to their children, who had just learned in the most traumatic way possible that their father had been systematically dishonest and unfaithful throughout their parents' marriage. Steve's words carried weight of personal experience and hard-won wisdom about relationships and the consequences of betrayal, his response to the situation reflecting genuine emotion rather than scripted reaction or performance for cameras. Steve then turned his attention to Christina, and his expression and tone shifted immediately to reflect compassion and support for a woman who had just experienced one of the most devastating moments any spouse could face. Steve told Christina that he was profoundly sorry that she had learned about her husband's infidelity in this manner, that no one deserved to have such life-altering information revealed publicly, and that the pain she was experiencing was valid and appropriate given the magnitude of betrayal she had just discovered. Steve addressed the children directly, his voice gentle but honest as he acknowledged that Megan and Connor had just witnessed something that no children should have to see, their parents' marriage falling apart, and their father's dishonesty being exposed in public and traumatic fashion. Steve told them that what had occurred was not their fault in any way, that their father's choices and actions were his responsibility alone, and that they would need support and help to process what they had just experienced and learned about their family. The taping was immediately suspended as production staff, family counselors, and crisis intervention specialists were brought in to provide immediate support to Christina and her children. The Bennett family was escorted to a private area where they could begin to process what had occurred without the presence of cameras, studio audience, or the public scrutiny that had made the revelation so much more traumatic than it would have been in any private setting. Steve Harvey spent considerable time with Christina and her children, ensuring they had access to professional support and resources for dealing with the immediate crisis and its aftermath. He connected them with therapists who specialized in trauma and infidelity recovery, with legal resources for understanding their options regarding the marriage, and with practical support for managing the immediate logistical challenges of returning home and beginning to rebuild their lives in the wake of such devastating revelation. The episode never aired in any form. The decision was made immediately and unanimously that broadcasting the Bennett family's crisis would serve no purpose beyond exploitation of genuine human suffering for entertainment value, something that Steve Harvey and the production team refused to do regardless of the compelling nature of the footage or potential ratings impact. The incident remained known only to those who had been present in the studio that day, all of whom were asked to respect the family's privacy and not share details of what had occurred. However, Steve did address infidelity, and its impact on families in general terms during a later episode, discussing the devastating consequences of betrayal and deception in marriages, and the particular trauma that occurred when such revelations happened publicly, or in ways that involved children witnessing their parents' pain and conflict. Steve spoke about the importance of honesty and fidelity in committed relationships, and about the reality that choices to betray trust had consequences that extended far beyond the individuals directly involved, to include children, extended family, and entire communities of people who were affected by the destruction of trust and stability. The immediate aftermath of the public revelation was devastating for the Bennett family. Christina filed for divorce within 2 weeks of the Family Feud taping, recognizing that the systematic nature of Andrew's infidelity and the years of deception that had accompanied it represented fundamental betrayal that made continuation of the marriage impossible regardless of whatever remorse or commitment to change Andrew might now express. The divorce proceedings revealed the full extent of Andrew's affairs and dishonesty, information that was painful but also validating for Christina, as it confirmed that her decision to end the marriage was appropriate and necessary given the scope of betrayal she had experienced. Megan and Connor entered therapy to process the trauma of learning about their father's infidelity in such a public manner, and to work through their feelings about the dissolution of their parents' marriage, and the revelation that their father had been systematically dishonest throughout their lives. The therapeutic work was difficult but essential for helping them develop healthy understanding of relationships, trust, and accountability that would serve them as they grew into their own intimate partnerships in the future. 1 year after the devastating revelation on the Family Feud stage, Christina had established a new life characterized by stability, honesty, and freedom from the constant deception that had unknowingly characterized her marriage, even when she had believed it to be strong and healthy. She had worked through the initial trauma of discovery with professional support and had developed clarity about the warning signs she had missed or rationalized during her marriage, insights that would help protect her from similar betrayal in any future relationships she might choose to pursue. Steve Harvey maintained periodic contact with Christina through her therapist, checking on her well-being and her children's adjustment to their changed family circumstances. He spoke about the incident in private conversations as one of the most difficult and painful moments he had experienced in his television career, expressing ongoing sadness about the manner in which Christina had learned about her husband's betrayal and ongoing admiration for the strength and dignity she had demonstrated in facing such devastating revelation and rebuilding her life in its aftermath. If this story has reinforced your understanding of the devastating impact of infidelity on families, the importance of honesty and fidelity in committed relationships, and the courage required to face painful truths and rebuild life after betrayal, please take a moment to like this content and subscribe to our channel for more powerful narratives about families navigating their most difficult challenges with strength and determination to create healthier futures for themselves and their children.